Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. My name is llBonkll, and we are now arriving at round 4 of the worst Warframe tournament. No explaining this time around because as this is the 4th video in this little series, everyone should understand what's happening pretty easily. If you're just arriving here for the first time, welcome, and you'll probably want to go watch the previous rounds, which I'll put in a card up there, so that you don't get a little lost as to what's transpiring. Anyway, only 4 matchups here in the quarterfinals. Let's jump in and find out which frames make their way to the semis. First up in our search for the worst, our final 8 is going to be a bout between Old Man Winter himself and the sentient with the biggest beam you've ever seen. But only one can move on. Gonna be honest, I'm surprised Frost has made it this far as such a strong option for endgame content, but I'm guessing it's because a lot of people still see him as the Snow Globe or Snow Globe Go Boom and that is all. Which, don't get me wrong, isn't bad, but he does offer more, namely armor strip and mass freezing, which, you know, is helpful. I'll now show that luckily it looks like Frosty won't be moving further as the Tenno who cast their votes have confirmed that Caliban is the worst frame, by a good chunk too. Now, I will say Caliban does have access to some great options in the grand scheme of things. He's got a way to regen his shields, mass defense stripping, and a stomp, I guess, but doesn't stand anywhere near Frost when it comes to true potential. But as in other videos, these decisions weren't up to me, and although I agree with your choice, I will still show some of the comments, and since we're getting closer to the end, I'll try to show a decent bit more of them than usual. Not like a crap ton, but maybe a couple more, if I find one's worth showing. Anyway, how about our first? DeleteBoy.exe comes in with a comment that explains his reasoning and takes it in a direction that we haven't really seen yet throughout these videos. He explains that Caliban is only obtainable to the player after New War, unless you buy him obviously, and by that point in your personal Space Ninja journey, your frames will most likely be completely capable of any endgame content and any of the things that Caliban can do, like regenning or armor strip. Furthermore, he elaborated that unlike Caliban, Frost is obtainable from series, which really isn't all that hard to get to in the time investment department. And he still actually sees Frost's in-game, and Caliban seems to have been lost in the minds of players as no one even remembers him, it seems. He finalizes his comment with the fact that although he doesn't think Frost is super insane, he still destroys Caliban when it comes to power potential, and at least Frost has his applications. Mike McSmurphy, what do you got? Well, a pro Caliban comment is indeed what he's got. He explains that Caliban has a great passive, he can armor strip with minimal effort, has some sentient henchmen that can keep his shields fueled, plus a CC that applies a debuff. All true. But then comes Vidmarer with a reply to Smurfy Mike's comment. He offers a few counterpoints, explaining that Frost can armor strip as well, Frost has more practical and useful CC, his augment makes his 4 into a better iteration of Caliban's 2, and finally he says that Caliban's passive really isn't all that good, because you have to get hit a bunch of times before it actually hits that 50% damage reduction. I will say that Caliban's armor strip is definitely much easier to use, but Frost also comes with, you know, freezing and the armor strip for any enemy it hits, so that's a great plus in exchange for some shenaniganery to actually get Frost's armor stripping to apply. All around good opinions from both sides coming out of that comment. Collateral Chaos, the most Gauss main that ever existed. Like, I dare you to ask this guy about Gauss, I'm pretty sure he has a manifesto on the subject. But we aren't here for that frame. What does he think about the current players in our little game here? Well, he agrees with the fact that Caliban is not great. A shorter comment, but one with a central point that is easy to understand. It is as follows. Although Frost is boring, facts, and a little old, he is still a solid option for a lot of content. On the other hand, he adds that Caliban's kit feels like a mess, which I will say is a consistent point in a lot of comments, that point being that Caliban's kit feels pretty willy-nilly. I agree with this comment wholeheartedly. I know Frost is decent, and I do actually use him sometimes, but I can't deny that I feel like a geriatric in a coma on the brink of pulling the plug myself when I play him. Anyway, how about one more comment, huh? Let's find one that isn't as serious. Or more. To be short, Frost chill CC Globe go hee hee. Caliban kaboom slaughter good. Frost worse. Okay, got ya. Icy nicey. Interesting opinion, sir. It's just Caliban? Well, yeah, I guess, you know, it is. This guy asked about Chroma. You're a little late, bud. Let's just throw Caliban on up into the semis of the bracket and move on into our next bout. One that's a little less one-sided, at least comments-wise. At long last, my boy Frost received justice. A trickster, a Cthulhu pirate, both seen widely as much weaker frame options. But between Loki and Hydroid, who's worse overall? Well, that's what we're here to find out. My opinion, to get it out of the way, first, fuck Loki. I actually feel my synapses evaporating out of boredom when I have to play him. And Pirate, on the other hand, I subsumed very soon after I got him and haven't really tried to go for his prime in the slightest because I just plain hated him. But out of these two, I'd say Hydroid is worse. At least Loki can make spy missions super easy when I'm playing on 2 hours of sleep and I don't want to worry about hitting more than 2 buttons. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this matchup very briefly. Now it's time for your nerd opinions. We will start with that one dude's comment. He speaks on each of Hydroid's abilities and why he thinks they are shit. He states that Tidal Surge is an unsteerable dash forward when you add too much duration. His puddle is a neat concept, is it though? But it's executed horribly, as you are taken out of the game completely when you use it. His tentacle treasure looks good on paper, but it's just kind of annoying because it ends up with enemies flailing around in the air, making it a bit of a task to try and aim them down to finish them off. I will add that AoE guns exist, my dude, so that would make that a little easier for you. The last thing I'll mention is that he says, although Corrosive Barrage Augment used to be able to AoE armor strip, the reworked status system nixed that possibility for him. In a reply to this comment now, we have ID Not Found, who goes the same route but flip-flooped, instead explaining how each of Loki's abilities are dookie. To start, he says the decoy is a useless tool as it's supposed to draw fire, but why when enemies around you won't even see you because you're invis, and will most likely be disarmed anyway. Invisibility, he does admit, is one of his abilities that still holds up in some way. Radial Disarm, he's got 3 different points for. First point, doesn't work on melee units, so useless against an entire faction, the Infested. Second point, only works on living enemies. Yeah, why would you need to disarm a dead guy? Okay. And third point, useless even on living enemies because they're going to be distracted or not even attacking you in the first place when you're invis. He says finally that Hydroid at least has AoE damage capabilities, and that's why he believes Loki is worse. Window of Pain comments the real reason that Hydroid loses, and it's, drumroll please, he's Hydroid. What else do I need to say? Well, I was kind of hoping for something else, but okay. Weeping Willow Tree, what's your vote? Well, it seems Loki was. And why? Because this player values damage over anything else, and Loki does not have a damage ability. Plus, his invisibility does not equal invincibility. Hydroid can deal damage and gain invulnerability through his pathetic puddle. He also is capable of gaining extra loot and incapacitating enemies through his 4, like Loki can, but Loki just gives them a mini stroke that makes them drop their guns. This guy I don't think understood fully what was going on here, as he said he doesn't have Hydroid and he likes Loki, but he voted Loki as worse. Don't think he understood the assignment, champ. You're supposed to vote who you think is worse, but that's okay. I'm sure he'll figure it out next time. Maro here felt the need to tell us they like tentacles. Keep that to yourself, buddy. Loki has invis and disarm. As boring as that is, at least it's not Puddle Prime. Well, about that, let's move Mr. Puddle Prime on up to the semis to take on Caliban in the next round. To be honest, if there's one thing I've learned from doing this tournament, it's that predictions are a lot harder than it seems. We'll have to see if you guys hold steadfast in your original predictions that you made in the earlier rounds. Loki can go invisible, and Hydroid is a fish. So, this one was not close, not at all. The comments weren't even split in the slightest, give or take 1 or 2 Inaros mains, because that's right, it's time for the GOAT Oberon versus our favorite inept Aros, the Pharaoh. But not anyone's favorite, I hope. Some may like Inaros and all, but I truly hope that no one has Inaros at the top of their list. It's pretty well known at this point how I feel about him, and although I think Oberon isn't really all that great looking at the big picture, he sure as shit is better than Inaros. But we will have to look into some comments, even if the pick was seemingly obvious to many a player. Alec Comstock, really want to say that a different way, but I'm sure he's heard it enough in high school, states that Oberon at least has buttons worth pressing, plus a free revive, as well as big armor and heals. He continues to say that there is nothing wrong with enjoying a brain-dead frame where you don't really have to worry about playing at all, and Inaros can offer that. Once again, simply from Flash Tiger, we have a comment about how Oberon has abilities. Then a comment here from, I don't remember, Inaros is actually amazing. Did you know he's amazing at? Being useless, yay! Inaros has pocket sand while Oberon touches grass. Sandman is worse. Oberon, a shit Warframe. Inaros, Sombrero Takir merchandise. I like trains. Wait, what? Huh? That's just okay. I hate sand. It's coarse and rough and it gets everywhere. Put it simply, Oberon does things while Inaros does not. Are you guys starting to get the general idea of why Inaros is worse? It's because that guy liked trains. Okay, glad we've come to a consensus. I feel like I don't really need to continue with this this matchup at all. It seems as though that the mega majority is in agreement and we can probably move on already. Deerman wins and Inaros will be moving on in our search for the worst, up into the semifinals. But who will he be up against? Well, let's find out with our last bout of the quarterfinals. A pull closer than Inaros's, but still a wipeout for poor Yreli. This bout of Valkyr v Yreli was one that is a result of past rounds. I know that sounds very obvious, but more specifically, Valkyr probably only made it to this round because of a free pass last round because of where she ended up in the bracket. And it seems that this pull rectified that issue and made sure Valkyr wasn't even considered the worst. And although throughout this tournament I have realized a few frames that I thought weren't all that good actually were once I got a more informed point of view. Yreli doesn't quite hit that level for me though. Even with all of these players sharing why they think she's great, I just find K-Drive to be a giant detriment and just a pain in the ass to use, as it's pretty much needed for survivability too, so you have to stay on it. And you can say, skill issue like a brain dead degenerate, but I don't really care all that much. It's just my opinion on the matter. Her blades are fun and the augment makes them really strong, but spamming one button becomes a little tedious, you know? At least with someone like Valkyr, she's got a few different buttons to hit sometimes. I also am aware that bubbles are decent as a weaken tool for something like Archon hunts, but like, nah, I'll just bring in someone else that I find enjoyable into those things. Archon hunts really aren't that hard. Yreli's Crowd Control 4 is okay, but after the recent rework, I think it actually got weaker than the builds that were possible for her 4 before. Anyway, my opinions don't mean a lick of shit, but your opinions do. So let's go look at those. Ray Shadow thinks Valkyr is a great frame, one that can be nearly unkillable, and a frame that can provide her teammates with some decent buffs in the form of Warcry granting those melee combat bonuses. He doesn't think Yreli is terrible by any means though, admitting to some great crowd control, a good survival tool in the form of the K-Drive, but the K-Drive is also the problem that he has with her kit, agreeing with one of my many points from earlier that it just feels like shit and doesn't work in current tile sets. Yeah, I mean, all true. Let's go on ahead to the next comment. Giratina is up next. They explain that although Valk has a fun kit, Yreli is seen as better in their eyes after the reworks. First reason, she has a great grouping skill. Second reason, her great 3 ability. Third reason, a great passive. And finally, a Rhino Ironskin surfboard. They then go on to explain that Valkyr has Ripline. Yeah, okay, I guess Ripline probably isn't that great. They also say Warcry is as limiting as Merulina. Not sure about that one, champ. And Paralysis and Hysteria are bad, especially because this player believes that you have to run a heavy attack build. Okay, I get why you like Yreli. Some good points there. But if I'm being real with you, your reasons for disliking Valkyr seem very funky. Especially the Merulina is as limiting as Warcry one, but to each their own, I guess. And now we must head on into the next comment. And if you're wondering why I say that, it's because somebody made a vote based on Platypus's last round. So I feel like I can't really say that this reason should not count as a vote when the Platypus reason counted, you know? Cloudzo is for Yreli being worse, not because they think they are bad. They indeed say that Yreli can actually deal a shit ton of damage with Tenet Plinks after weakening the enemies, but Valkyr, straight up, is death incarnate. She won't die and will eviscerate everything. Rogue Owl has an interesting comment. Fish-smelling e-girl gets eaten by a cat in this poll. Val Kitty finally getting off the list. I don't know how to respond to that. Next, Valkyr kills stuff and not die. Yreli gets stuck on map geometry. True. Finally, I'll say, Wave Rider makes me wanna, and the kitty is OP. So, there you have it. Valkyr finally exits stage left, and Yreli moves on into our matchup with Inaros. I cannot fucking wait for that comment section. Here it is, the completed round 4 bracket. We are close to finding the real worst, but there's still 2 more rounds of voting to go. So, if you want to be part of our next round, head over to the community tab where we hold these polls and get ready for the semifinals voting round to begin, which it will about 1 day after I release this video. If you enjoyed, leaving a like would be incredibly appreciated, and possibly even a sub too. Why not? I've also got a Discord called Aviator Legion that will be linked down below. Come hang out and ask questions if you need. I hope to continue to create content that you can all enjoy, and 5K here we come. Play Zaku 24/7 or or Clem will find you while you're sleeping, and good night.